Okay, it's 9:30, Thursday, December 12th, 2024. Call this meeting to order to discuss several items for the sheriff's office. I will turn it over to the sheriff's office to start the conversation.
All right. Well, we'll start with the easier ones first. So we'll start with the FirstNet phones. Essentially, AT&T offers a service to law enforcement that puts us ahead of everyone else if it gets flooded with people, particularly in the summers. When everyone's up to Joe, the cell towers get overloaded at times, so it creates poor service and so on and so forth. Plus, from my perspective, it would also help with the budgeting coming this next year, getting some of these things separated. Right now, my understanding is it comes out over here somewhere for the cell phones and whatnot.
Some of it does. The bill breaks up, yes.
Thank you. The bill breaks up cell phones and whatnot. So that's, I think right now we're looking at, actually I'm going to pass it off to her for the numbers. I think it's $1 more per phone.
So it's a little over $1 more, but the options that they offer us are substantially more. So cell service goes out and they have like these little like robot type things that they can get to us within so many hours and like put it at our building or put it in a city, and within 1,500 feet they have cell phone service. So if our guys have something going on like in the Joe and they have something huge and need cell phone service and we ask ahead of time, they can get something there. Or we don't have cell phone service here because power goes out and we need it here for our guys or for just dispatch to run, they can get it here for us. Versus when Verizon's down and dispatch is down, we don't have anything. So like when that power went out and generators froze and it took us a little bit to get that up and going, we just always have a secondary system. So.
Okay. And it also sets us up for when satellite texting starts officially. These other services are already saying they're going to start charging probably heavily. Where we actually have, is it $5 a month is the projected at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, like $5 a month when that comes into play a year, 2 years from now, which is way cheaper than anywhere else I've found. And then with the Wi-Fi services and other things they set up, I mean, it's astronomical the amount of extras they're giving, plus an immediate guy at our phone call to work with our problems for $1 more online.
And Ryan has offered to come in and sit down with us and work with Verizon to get us out of our contract. So that's going to be one of the big things is they got to be able to get us out of that contract because we can't pay large. And they did say in our pitch meeting that they have helped other counties get out of those contracts as well.
Okay. So yeah, he came in and he talked to us. Didn't you hear when he did that? Yeah.
Oh, I do believe other departments here in the county are already on it. Yep. And they have those boxes, I think, up here in the county already, the building, to help extend service for you guys. They put up a couple boxes over here, I believe.
What's the total impact on your budget?
So it's $1.70 and we have 13 phones, so I think it's
$13.
Yeah,
no, 13.
$15 a month.
Very low, yeah.
$15 a month.
So, but when you're looking at the options, I just keep thinking of that huge windstorm we had a couple of years ago and how detrimental that was.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with Nextel or whatever.
FirstNet.
FirstNet, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
FirstNet.
Okay. So, Colleen?
One really good perk to this is different from Verizon, where they're talking about having to get out of the contract.
Yes.
This is a month to month. You don't have to worry about it if somebody leaves. You just shut off that phone, you get a new one, or you just transfer it to another person. It's not that hassle of, well, now we have to figure out canceling contracts and paying and all of that. It's basically a month to month on everything that he says. And it's a dashboard where Katie can go in and do that, or whoever's in charge of that, they can go in and do that immediately. So as personnel is moving through, they can make the changes immediate real time. And so that's huge. And
right.
So there's no contracts to have to worry about terminating if they lose somebody or change somebody.
And if they can't get us out of these contracts, we have no intention of going forward till this contract expires, because that would cost us a good chunk of money.
Okay, so it sounds like the commission is in favor of pursuing it if we can get out of the Verizon contract.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying, Tracy?
Yes, absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good. And then next, is computer purchases. They're both, well, all three are over $500 each. I believe we have room in for, well, we do have plenty of room for our budget for all of them. This would be.
Oh, I have copies for them.
Thank you. We have way outdated equipment for our evidence technician. In fact, it's not functional, so this would set her up to where she could work from home as well, through a VPN connect essentially, and do a lot of our evidence stuff. And then the 911 director, would that be his technical
Yeah,
title?
she's the other one.
So Casey would get one, the same thing, and then a tough book, which I don't have the quote here, but was just over $2,000. Would allow us to have the computer for that detective that's willing to work for $11 an hour, but he still needs a computer.
And currently our evidence clerk is having to write all the evidence in our evidence storage room and go back into her office and enter it into her computer and then go back in and write it. So now she'd be able to take her laptop in there and actually enter it instead of
Doing it twice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And taking it home. Her husband's got some health concerns. Obviously, I can't go into in public session, but there is a point where she'll have to be working from home. And this isn't us asking for extra money. It's just out of the budget we already have.
Okay,
Sounds fair to me.
that sounds fair to me as well.
Tracy?
Okay.
It sounds good, yes.
All right.
Do you want to do a motion?
Do we need a motion to spend that within the budget?
No. Well, I don't think so. We just all have to agree
Have we?
on, well,
Want to do a motion
Yeah,
just to
let's
be
do it.
safe?
all motion to allow the purchase of the computer and hardware for the
Us.
evidence room and the detective and
911 director.
911 directors. Yeah.
Tracy, are you a second?
I'll second that, yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so that's official. You can spend money in your budget.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next one, easiest one is to go into is the vehicle leases. Fortunately, it was less than we had thought, and then
Do you guys need new copies of that, or it looks like she got them for you?
yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
got it.
The county does lose money on interest. I believe it was 3,000 a year. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that one lease is $3.22 a day alone. That last
that
lease.
one?
Yeah.
So it adds up quick. So it'd be, we brought it before you guys, I think last time we were in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same thing, asking for us to proceed with one of the ideas that was brought up last year, and then again this year to pay off those leases.
Okay, and these were in the budget this year?
No,
No.
we were told by the commission to essentially table this and then look at it with grant funds, which Colleen's here to help us out with that as far as any other questions on the grants that were looked at.
So they're not in the budget?
There's no
vehicles
we-
in the budget at all.
No,
So
they
we-
took everything out of their budget this year.
Yeah, we don't have. You guys had asked us to take everything vehicle-wise out of our budget for purchasing or payoffs. So we have no lease payments, anything.
I don't think we would have said for payoffs, but.
Even our current, like to make this year's lease payments, we don't even have money in our budget for those lease payments. So
Yeah, okay, that's a misconnect
Yeah,
there,
that's
I
a
think.
big misconnection, because we wouldn't have.
Gotta
we
pay
would have
that.
and one
made
is
that
already
correction.
one has already been made.
Okay.
But the total payoff for all four leases that are left over is roughly 72,728. So just under 73,000.
Now with the one that was already made, did that make it go negative?
Yes,
So wouldn't it need to include that as well?
it does include that.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So
includes
that includes that payment that we had already made because our budget has a negative line item on it currently. Because I just had her code it to what we had as our lease payments last year. Because we were told we were going to talk about this at another time.
Okay, Grant Queen, what do you got?
There is the ability to pay for that, and depending again on which one we wanted to do, and that goes back to what I have that needs to be obligated by the end of this year from the SLFRF is about $277,000. Now, there was the conversation in the budget season of the 260 for wages. So, there's an MOU that we can do that officially obligates that, so that satisfies treasury. And that's that 260,000 for wages that was approved through the budget to bring out of one of these two funds. And the conversation was,
No, it wasn't for wages, it was to fund the sheriff's department, right?
Mhm.
So it was just to fund the sheriff's department, it wasn't for wages, right?
wages is what I have listed. That it
It was
offset
just-
wages. It's for the
I think
budget.
that's what we ended up
Was it?
doing.
I thought it was just general fund.
I mean, that rings a bell.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go forward.
So, I mean, that opens that where, again, if we can get these paid off or have an MOU put in place, this can come out of the SLFRF. I've got things lined up in that these two meetings kind of determine how I'm gonna put the MOUs to you guys to sign for the interagency agreements to officially obligate under treasury rules the rest of this SLFRF money. On the other side, it can come out of 103.
What's the best one to come out of SLFRF?
When can you get these paid off?
I have payoffs dated through the 23rd. So,
We can do it this next week.
yeah, I have payoff in here. I got them all through the 23rd. So,
To make it clean and easy, and it makes it easier for me to finish out the rest of this, if we pull the remainder of this out of the SLFRF, that would be
Okay.
great, as long as we can have those paid off before the end of this month.
it's just a matter, do I do those
Yeah.
for Carrie? Because I know she's super busy with taxes. That's my one. Is
No,
that,
it'd be go through the clerk.
okay. I just don't want to put another burden on the treasurer's office.
Terry has to get the payoffs.
I have the payoffs
You
already.
have all of those
Yep,
ready?
I've already jumped through those hoops through the 23rd of
You
December.
might want to go over and just talk to her and tell her, hey, I've got the payoff, so.
And she's the one who sent them to me. So I
Oh, okay,
contacted the
good.
banks.
Okay.
The banks send them to her
Okay.
and she sends them to me.
Okay,
So she already knew I was working on this.
okay.
So we can just get the check
Okay.
cut
Yeah.
directly to them,
Okay.
and that will be, make sure that we put on there that they're prepaid and get them into the commissioner's hands before the end of the month.
Okay.
Sign it.
So I can work with Colleen and Julie and the clerk's office to get
Okay.
these taken care of. And I'll contact the banks too to make sure, see if there's
We
something
do
else they
want to
need.
vote on this, I think.
Yes,
Yes.
yep.
Okay. Tracy?
Yes.
You agree? Okay. I would entertain a
Yes.
motion that we use this SLFRF funds to pay off the existing vehicle leases for the sheriff's office for $728.70.
So moved?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
No. Now, just wait, one further discussion is, the payment that you already made,
That includes that payment.
that includes that
Yes,
payment.
because I think that was roughly, so that was the 21 Ram. So that is included in that 17,000 on there. Yes. So it says 17,347. That's included in that amount on the side,
On
the one that's
far-
not in the box.
okay.
Far side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
no.
Tracy, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries to go ahead and pay off the existing vehicle leases.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And next is flooring. This is not asking for additional money. This is gonna come out of our already pre-existing budget. But downstairs, I'm more than welcome to show a commissioner around downstairs. It's pretty bad, for our patrol areas. So the sergeant's office, the patrol, room, the pen, and then the detective's office. Try cleaning everything we can. It's pretty well destroyed. So the cheapest flooring option I can find that I think would hold, essentially these squares, got a rough estimate of $2,345. Essentially we ripped that up and put these squares in. I'm not going to go into how to do it, and it's pretty durable, and the material I think would hold much better.
And then those squares are nice, because if you do destroy one, you don't have to rip the whole carpet
Yes.
out, you just replace the
Hold one
square.
square.
Yep.
So you're familiar.
You bet.
This
Yeah.
is new to me, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So
Mhm.
yeah, so
I
it'd be
think
much
the
cheaper.
treasurer's office did that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I will caveat that just for because this is going to come up later in the discussion, we won't make the purchase until after the 1st, per the request of the clerk's office.
Okay.
January.
But that is in your budget, you've
Yes.
got repair money.
Yes.
Okay. Any comment from the commissioners?
No.
Okay, are we in
Nope.
support of that
Yeah,
idea?
I'm support.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
let's go and do it.
Yes.
Thank you. And then we have city contract update. So I just left, I did a meeting with the city of Smelterville. Last night they approved we were currently getting $40,000 a year for 2 hours a day. In reality, we're spending way more time than that in Smelterville by miles, but they did agree. It's in the mid-year, so it's tough to negotiate mid-year, but they were willing to up it to $55,000 immediately this year. And then next year they approved $70,000. And then I relayed the same message to them that I did to Wallace, that essentially the goal long-term would be a 2/3 of what it would normally cost for their own department, which they seem accepted to, but of course those negotiations will happen not this coming year, but the following to get into that.
So what's 2/3 of their department? What would that be for Smelterville?
Roughly 2/3 would be about $120,000 a year. But obviously, just like Wallace, jumping straight from 40 to 100, I mean, that's
Yeah, I see that.
not really reasonable, but they are making giant leaps to meet us there. So,
yeah, up to 70 is a good start. So they understand in the next year or
Yeah.
two.
that's a 2-year contract, and then, yeah, we'll start negotiations. I think that's 2026, July-ish range for the following contract.
Okay,
And then any questions on the Wallace one?
where is
'Cause
it?
that's done.
Where is it right now? It's all finished, right?
It's all finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
They signed off on it. And
Yep.
everything.
It's all finished, signed off on. My understanding, we're good to go. Can you put a note saying I gotta get a copy to Peggy though?
Yep.
She told me she didn't have it. So, then goes into clarification of spending on spending items. There was some confusion on our end. We thought it was over $1,000 to come before the BOCC. By the county policy, I believe it's over 500. That creates a huge problem on our day-to-day operations, to where we would be in here probably almost every day, if not every 2 days, with a list of things to approve, mainly because of our vehicle fleet. So even tires is over $500. So we were asking for some direction on that, and the BOC's sees essentially clarification on it. If it's within our budget. If it's outside our budget, we totally understand, but if it's within our budget, is that what the BOCC would like on every single purchase that comes out of the sheriff's office?
Commissioner Cassidy, any thoughts?
So your purchases on just their day-to-day operation? Or I guess I missed part of what the purchases were.
So, for example, vehicle maintenance right now, I would say the majority of our purchases is over $500 per vehicle, because you have everything from tires to any fix a vehicle has. I mean, everyone, even the public, would know that usually when you take your vehicle in a shop, it's over $500. So the mass majority, we would be in here all the time on every single vehicle, and would greatly decrease the process.
I would be willing.
I would say,
I'll go ahead.
I mean, that would be the same with any of our departments. If it's within your budget, then we've budgeted for that, and it comes through approval to us once you submit the invoices. But
The policy states anything over $500 on purchases, and that's just like if they're going to purchase computers and things like that. Even though it's budgeted, that's what the policy says. So it wouldn't be over the budget, because we wouldn't have a policy like that, because they can't go over the budget. So I think what we need to do is probably clarify how we want to do this, whether we do it with, if it's general maintenance and things like that, we wouldn't require it. If it's purchases of assets, one of the problems we're having right now is assets over $500 need to be cataloged, need to be put into the clerk's office asset list. And it's not only, it's our county is valued. buy those assets. Those assets, you know, at the end of the year, that's where we get a value of the county assets is that, and then also for insurance wise. So I think we need to probably discuss that a little further, but I would say with maintenance and tires and things like that, I believe in the vehicle policy that the county has. There's a vehicle policy I ran across. It's 2010. The vehicle policy states that if there's a vehicle that needs major repairs, then that would come to the board to see if they want to do the major repairs. But I
Yeah,
think
I
What's considered a major
This might be a good one to consult with legal a bit too on.
Yeah.
What's-
Well, you'll have to look at the policy. It's a 2010 policy.
Do they, in there, does it like specify what would be considered a major repair?
No, I just ran across it and was looking through it, so I'll have to do it more. I'll get
Okay.
it to you.
And I kind of figured you guys weren't able to answer that today. It's more of something for guidance for us because we have
Yeah.
a big budget. So it's a matter of guidance for that and for things already budgeted. So what falls in those lines? Because even the other things, there's a host of items. So if we could address that next month with these other things coming up. In the meantime, though, as far as at least vehicles, am I good there until that's
Yeah.
discussed? Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Commissioner?
on vehicles. Does that make sense, Tracy? To let them go
It
ahead?
does, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, especially if it's budgeted for, so.
And then our front office staff and the new pay scale. So, my understanding is they're still, and again, I know there's a lot of tension last year on all this. Hopefully it can be alleviated. This is just a question. So my understanding is the new pay scale came into effect over here for everyone here. Our front office staff, including our evidence technician, she has like 3 jobs, wasn't included in that, is my understanding. And they're not in the justice, like, they're not in a separate pay scale. This is the pay scale. They go off of the old one. And so my understanding is they weren't looked at for any sort of raise and didn't get any.
We'll have to, I think that's a good question for our clerk at this time, to see if they were and what pay scale they were on, whether they were matched, to see if,
We were on the same one they were on. We're on the county one.
okay.
And
And
this is
but
the new
the
county one.
problem is we're looking at now is budget. You guys don't have it in your budget for the pay increase, and see over here they had it in the budget for the pay increase. So we're gonna have to talk to Peggy to see how we can figure that out. But see, that's the thing, you guys are allotted so much for the justice fund. So, you know, it would come out of your justice fund to pay for those raises. It wouldn't come across the street because they're separate. So we need to talk about that and see how we can do that.
So that, I guess, is why I was asking for this topic here. So would you just like it essentially postponed and then just make sure the clerk is here for the next discussion on this?
That's probably
Is that
one
what
where
you're
we
saying?
want to have a separate meeting
Okay.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
invite the clerk.
All right. Sounds good.
That would make,
Yes.
instead of a list of 6 or 7, have that just be its own item.
Sounds great. I will
So if you make
put a
note of
note
that.
to the sheriff and I'm sure
Yep.
on that one. Okay. Sounds good. Then it goes into funding options. I'll start with the 2 easier ones. We're looking into, for cutting costs, we obviously went through line by line last year, trying to cut as much as humanly possible. And I believe, well, it's actually kind of difficult to tell. Sorry, I gotta get some of my other sheets. How much was cut out of our budget by the different numbers we received. But my understanding is at least 61,000 less than we had in prior years, even with the influx of the 600K for public defense. So with that, sorry, I gotta collect my. So anyway, we're having a hard time figuring out where we can trim more or save money. However, 2 ideas did come up. One being was the fueling at County Yard. From what the undersheriff said, because he's still looking into that. That's in process. I'm not ready to brief that today. but he did say that doesn't look like it actually save us money. Apparently, there's not as much cost savings we would assume, being the general public, to where it might not save us any and might even cost depending on driving all the way there and such. Because you need, my opinion, roughly a 25 cents less a gallon to make it worthwhile. It sounds like far less than that, but the undersheriff's working on that. Second being something for the county to consider, our health insurance. So our health insurance, was it $700 a month for single?
That they're paying?
That the county's paying. The county's paying a significant amount per person for health insurance, correct? Or if it's a family, it's even more than that. So one possible idea came up that I thought was great. It was actually given to me by one of our sergeants, to essentially incentivize people getting off the plan, to where whatever half of that cost is, offering an employee this much in their VEBA if they're not on our plan. Because what happens is most families are co-working spouses or something, so they might have health insurance or something to where they would actually voluntarily leave the plan for, let's just say it's $700 a month paying into that the county pays. So thus the county would agree to pay $350 into that employee's VEBA instead. But that's if they agree to get off the health insurance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It was just an idea that I was like, well, that's actually sounded like a great idea to me. So I figured I'd pass that along.
Okay.
Any question on that one?
Now I'll have to run that by.
There's a lot of moving parts there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't know if it'd be doable, but
What's open enrollment?
first every year usually. First time
No, it's,
no?
Or is it?
Oh,
yeah.
that's right. It goes with our budget. So, yeah.
Okay.
So there's that. And then leads us into kind of the hardest one. I'm gonna find the email. Essentially, I'm gonna raise a list of questions, and feel free to disagree or want to dive into it now.
Okay.
That we just kind of need answered, and again, guidance from the BOCC on maybe even schedule a month out so everyone can dig into where it all is and what the answers are. So I'm not trying to get into finger pointing or argument basis. It's just a matter of this came up and not 100% sure what to do about it. So we received an email from the clerk's office essentially saying that the funds we're spending would put us around $76,000 in the negative right now, and that money was moved from the current expense fund to cover the shortage, which causes the general fund to lose interest. This raises up a few facts for us, so I did have a meeting with Peggy to say, hey, well, how can we short term try to fix this? And that's why I'm trying my best not to have us spend any money that we absolutely don't have to until the 1st of January, because that's when some more funds start coming in. But it did raise some additional questions of, if you look at, if or even the general public looks at the meeting on July 15th with the auditor, he said that we had $747,000, give or take 10,000, in the cash that, so we had roughly 1.6 months operating expenses already right there. I was also told in meeting with the clerk that we spent, and she may have been generalizing, so to protect her on that one, because this is just a casual meeting, but that we spent down to the dime last year. I went over last year's budget, and we spent $400,000 to $600,000 under what was budgeted. The final numbers have not come in yet, but I've got pretty up-to-date numbers, so it should be we were $400,000 to $600,000 under budget. So that would add to that $747,000-ish number an additional $400,000 to $600,000 that should amplify that cash fund. On top of that,
Well, wait a minute. When the auditor said that, he was probably saying this is where your expenses are and what you were budgeted. So you have $750,000 more to spend this year. So from July to out, that's what he wouldn't say it's cash, because when we're budgeting, you're budgeting, okay, I'm gonna spend $1 million this year. We don't spend $1 million all in 1 month. So when he was looking at what it seems to me when he's talking about cash, he was looking at July and he was saying, okay, well, we have $300,000 left because there's, or that would be your cash balance at that time. I don't think it would be a cash pot where you would add the $450,000 to it because you're spending it as you go. So now the $450,000, just real quick, all the expenses for the budget were due in November, I think November 15th. So everything, the budget we should be able to get hard numbers on exactly what was spent and what your budget was left over. So do you have a report from?
I do. From as recent as possible. Let me get the right one. Oh, that's from this year. So this would be as recent as possible, and for ours.
And what date was that?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. No,
The
this doesn't
10th.
say yesterday.
This one was from the 10th.
Okay, how about we give them that one? How about like 4? Okay. And that's where I don't want to make any assertions without the sheriff and undersheriff here, but like if everyone could watch the 7:15 video of the audit report, and that coming into that's not how I interpreted it. And I'd love some clarification on that. And then coming into this, so if all the funds were budgeted, or if the clerk's office did fund last year's budget, how the BOCC asked for, that is what should be there at the end of this year's $406,000. Coming into this year, just to point out, in the current budget, just a note, we brought up this last year during budgets, is the fuel. We overspent, we needed more in there. We stayed at the same fuel amount. Prices have fallen, so right now we're just under, but that's going to be again a concern when fuel prices go up again, which they will. But we are 19% through the year this year, and we've spent roughly 15, that's a rough estimate, but roughly 15% of our budget. So we are under budget again in this quarter. So just some thoughts of how to figure this all out, I would
Print
say.
mine, want to look at it.
Okay.
This is for the
This was for,
sheriff's only.
yep, this is October 1st of 23 through September of 24.
Sorry about that.
And this says that at the end of the budget, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so because I don't want to,
Yeah.
without the sheriff and undersheriff, it's just to put forth the questions to go forth next. Because obviously everyone's going to be looking at this just like last year to try to make everything work. With that, also the way of funding the Justice Fund, if you look at the taxes, I mentioned this at the end of last year, but now that we're getting into this next budget season, like liquor tax and those things, if you look at the current expense fund where it went over here, they project this amount of money, and they always are conservative, rightfully so. But those funds generally grow on their own. If you look year over year, those funds are going to grow on their own, where taxes don't. So with putting taxes in the Justice Fund and putting the things like liquor funds that just gradually go up anyway, does put a lot more cash in the general fund than it does in the Justice Fund. So we'll be wanting to talk some about that, and just to try to figure out a better way that all parties can track this money, because what I was also told in the clerk's office that it's kind of on us to see how much money is in there when it comes in. That way we don't pull it out too soon. The problem is the logistics of that when we're required by law to provide certain services, looking for guidance on how to do that, because of the expenditures, as hopefully our expense shows right now, there is no over expenditures this year. It's purely just I can't, or
I
we.
think what she, just for a minute, where she's getting the negative at
Mhm.
is when the county at the end of the year, each department has a rollover fund.
Mhm.
That's what she talks about is 25%. And so that's supposed to fund us until January
Mhm.
when we start getting more taxes in. And I think that's, because I saw the email, and that's what, the way I understood it is, it was, there was no funds left over from last year, but Jen, you're saying there is, and I'll go back and look at that to see, and get with Peggy on it and see.
And it'd be
where she
those,
came up with the 460,000.
thank you, and it'd be those two numbers, and then, also, back on the email thing, we are currently losing interest on the other funds, or excuse me, we're currently losing interest on the other funds that cover the shortage. That would be the other thing that we would like to talk about in January as far as the overall interest of all this money. I'm assuming that means by this email it's like the Justice Fund doesn't get any interest.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, I'm sure it does when you, it's the same with, I think they split up the interest about, I don't know how they do it, but Carrie does splits up the interest, I think.
So that would be a question then.
Yeah,
Is-
the question whether,
Yeah. As far as how that's happening. But yes, so far as just some future planning so that we don't go negative providing services that have been budgeted for. Oh, sorry, back to this is the other perplexing part for us. How I see it is the BOCC directs us, this is your budget, stay within it. To which then we abide by that. The extra part that we've kind of been directed to, as far as also watch when exactly all this cash is coming in, and in my view, that's kind of the clerk's office job, not ours. And I honestly don't even know how to go about doing that because we don't have access to all the bank accounts and all these things of where exactly all the money is in the county. But I know how to follow a budget that I'm given and that we're given, and we, I think, have shown a history of staying within and well under budget when we can. So just as far as a way to figure that out amongst the different departments.
okay.
Anything further?
I think I got everything.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, and
Let me go ahead and open it up for public comment. If you have comments, this would be the time, Mr. Beener. I'm sorry?
Okay, I'll start.
Okay, so that's what you get by sitting by the door.
So you guys said you didn't ask for anything for leases, or told these guys, in May you guys didn't ask for anything, pre-budget. If they all what we discussed.
I'm sorry, was that a question or a comment? I
Just
couldn't.
comment. Your Wallace contract, I don't know, did you guys read this, or did legal read it? Because right now the money's going into the general fund, not into the justice fund. What else was there? I think that's about it.
Okay. Okay. Colleen, did you have anything else that you wanted to add before I move on? Public comment?
Oh, I got a bunch for that one. So, the issue with the money at the end of the year, you should have roughly had roughly $1 million from last year. The reason you don't have an extra $1 million is because this is your revenue that was projected for last year. That was the total amount for that one was $5,303,000.
So we're 5 million from, where'd you get 5 million?
That's from all the line items of the revenue that you're projecting. But you said this is what I'm going to pay you. So it's coming from property tax, penalties, interest, sales tax, grants, liquor apportionments, everything that you guys said. This is the revenue going to be coming. That's what you
That's
project.
coming in for the county.
No, for the justice fund. This is the justice fund.
That's justice fund revenue only?
Yep. This is
And
just.
where'd you get it from Peggy?
Yep.
Okay.
So this is the just fund. You take that number at the bottom, the 5 million, whatever, and then you add the 800,000 you had previously of cash on hand, that gave you your total budget. That equaled out to the exact amount that you budgeted for the budget.
See,
So you
with
got-
Peggy not in here, I'm not really following along what you're talking about.
I was just
Is
saying
this-
how the amount got to where it's at right now. If you budgeted, so you have cash on hand of $800,000 last year, you add that to the budget, add that to the revenue, that gives you the total amount of.
But where are you getting the $800,000?
That's what you had when you had your projection of your revenue and your budget. So this paper right here that you send out every year.
No, that's the notice that everybody gets,
Yeah.
right? That's the notice, that's our budget
But
notice.
that right here is the line item of the cash on hand, of the beginning of the year, that's cash on hand. So that's the money I'm talking about.
And that would be both the sheriff's department and.
Justice fund, yeah, the justice fund itself.
Yes,
So you take that money plus the money that you revenued, that equals the total budget
but that's cash on hand at that point.
at the
At the
fiscal
point-
year.
Well,
Well,
that's
day
the
one,
fiscal
fiscal
year,
year.
but see, when the expenses go all the way into November. So November, we can be paying bills in November.
Yeah, I'm saying
That-
that you gotta have cash on hand for that. But if you budgeted this correctly, you would have $0 at the end of the year.
No, but what I'm saying is in November is the last time that we can use last year's
Yep.
budget. So if everybody can be billing, we can
Yes,
get
you
bills
got
all the way
60
up
days
until
after
then.
the end of the year to budget for it. Yeah, it should be coming to 0. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you budget.
But that cash on hand's not gonna be accurate.
It is though. It usually
not
is.
gonna
It's
be.
roughly.
It's
It's
not
roughly.
gonna, well, it's not gonna be accurate because there's bills that still come in until November.
Well, you're estimating what your expenditures are. It's usually, it comes out for roughly about the same amount. This year it's roughly about 600,000. So you lost about 200,000 off of it.
No, I don't think you're understanding it, is bills can go for the previous year's budget until
Yes,
November.
at the end of the fiscal year, you had roughly $1 million in there. So then the last month, plus all the other things came out, you're roughly at 600,000. That's what the end of the year, after the 60 days, you had $600,000 in the budget for the justice fund. That was the amount of cash on hand to start the new fiscal year.
Okay,
that's the
I
money
didn't
you
see that. I'll have to look at that.
So that's the money you get. But you shouldn't actually even have that. It should be, if you budgeted correctly, you should be at a zero sum at the end of the year. Because you don't put in a line item of carryover. There's no carryover in your line items.
Well, they want us to carry
They want you
over
to, so you have to put a line
25%.
item that says, hey, we want this amount of money in.
That's not how you do it.
Then you'll be at a zero sum. If you spend all the money that
We
you're
don't
allocating,
wanna spend all the money, that's the point. That's
you
the
should
point.
be though. You should be
Well,
adjusting your budget correctly to where you should be spending the exact amount that you're requesting. That's what you should be doing.
Well, that's, in theory,
Yes,
yes, but the
that's-
auditor wants us
Yes,
to go
so you can't
over.
expect that, hey, I'm gonna spend $5 million and then I expect you to have $1.2 million at the end of the year.
Well, that's the department needs to think about 25%.
That's what I'm saying, but you have to budget it in your line items. You have to say, hey, we need a $1.2 million at the end of the year. If you don't put that in a line item, they're gonna have the money to have it. The only reason you have 600,000 is because they want 600,000 under budget. That's the only reason you have the cash on it.
Yeah, I don't think we're.
Well, I'll skip to that.
Yeah, I've got to limit your time here a little bit, so go ahead with the rest of your
Just to help out with the wages, hey, you're saying clerks don't get the wages because it's not in their budget right now. But they should have significant cost savings with the amount of employees that they're not employing right now. So if they have open positions, you're not paying for that salary. So that salary should be in their budget right now. That would cover those wages to bring them up to the fair amount that everybody else was raised to.
Do you have,
I would actually, so,
cause we put in a new, category for new hires. Did you guys fill that out?
the sheriff, I know I turned a report to her and she's
Okay.
working on the exact stuff like that. So every department head will report to her. As far as is there extra cash left in the salary line item? I would like to readdress it when the sheriff's here. From my understanding, yes, there would be enough to match whatever over here
Okay.
got. In the
That-
budget
That,
amount.
that would be good to know when we come in and talk next time.
Yeah, but I'm gonna reserve that for her.
And then the longevity that the county is doing, like raised other people up here for longevity? Have we set a policy on what actually is, because there's a bunch of people in their office that have longevity for the amount of years that they served and is not receiving however much years that they've served. So if they have, if they
You're
have a
talking
rate,
about the front office staff, correct?
everybody.
Oh.
Everybody. So they're raising up longevity for people who said they've missed in the past. If you don't have a reason why you missed them in the past, it might have been a justifiable reason, might not be. So if you're just raising them up, which you guys
So how
already
many
did,
people over there that didn't get longevity?
uh,
And who are they?
I know who, I'm not gonna say who the people are, but there are people over there that have,
How many?
I'd say, under 5.
Are they, law enforcement or are they clerical?
Well, so it's one of those questions on what the policy is. So if you're gonna raise these people over here for longevity for however many years they've worked in the county, then I would think that you would be.
Well, and the other thing is that's up to the department heads.
It
It's up to
was
the sheriff to
until
bring them
you
over.
guys at the county commissioners level said, ominous, everybody that has this many years is doing that. So you're then taking it away from the elected officials, saying, I'm doing it for these guys and not doing it for these
I
guys.
don't think you understand. I don't think you're understanding it.
You mind if I ask a clarifying question? The law enforcement personnel, if you could bring that to me after, because I'm not aware of law enforcement personnel, and I could be wrong, but the civilian personnel, I think what you're saying is just bring it before you guys next month.
That's up to the department head to
Budget
bring
for
forth
that.
those longevity pays.
In the budget
budget.
process.
Well, it should be going off of what your guys' policy on what the longevity should be. If it's years of service within the county, is it years of service
That
within
would
the
have
job?
that would have to be a question for our payroll clerk.
But it's not them, it's the elected official, or you guys are the county commissioners. You guys are the ones that set the pay, not the clerk.
No, you're not understanding. What I'm saying is that's up to the payroll clerk, because it's up to the sheriff to come over and say, hey, A, B, and C employee have longevity increase it.
Yeah,
That's
they
up to
had a
them to
standard
keep
practice
track of it.
before that they followed, and then you guys changed your
We
standard
didn't
practice.
change any standards.
You raised people up in longevity, did you not?
We fixed some things over
Exactly.
here that was.
If you fixed them, what
Well,
reason
there
did
was
you change the
one
longevity?
person over here. There was one person over
For
here.
what
that was
reason?
You'd have to discuss that with Peggy to see but that was their longevity pay. We adjusted one person with longevity pay.
That's what I'm saying. So if you're gonna change it for one person, if it's justifiable reason, then it's justifiable reason.
But we haven't got anything over here saying that, have we denied any longevity pays?
So I think the issue he's bringing up, I feel like we're getting redundant, but is that our clerical staff was on the exact same pay scale as here. So now that this pay scale is all of a sudden moved, then I think the feelings is that the clerical staff on that same pay scale should be abiding by the same pay scale.
So we're not even talking apples to apples.
But I'm
We
now
have
I'm
the
kind of lost.
question on
So.
what is the policy of the longevity? So is it, if I change positions, do I get my 20 years of service that I've changed my position or not?
I'm not aware of
We're not
any that
aware of
we've
any of
denied.
that.
Well, that's what I've seen on several of the employees that have changed positions. They've kept their longevity for years within the county.
I'd have to sit down with you. I'm afraid I don't have answers to
I'll
half
say
of what
it.
you're asking. Anything else that you'd like to?
I'll say.
Would you like?
I've used enough time.
Okay,
The
sir.
last one, on the procurement stuff, I was here when that was set up. And what it was set up to stop is if you put money into guns and you wanted a set of tires, if you had to steal money out of the guns to pay for that set of tires, it had to come in front of the commissioners. That's what it was set up for. It's taken from one line item and spending it in another one.
That's very helpful.
Okay. All right. Tracy, do you have any further comment? Oh, we lost Tracy. Okay. Do you have any further comment?
Nope.
Okay. With that, we've got another meeting in 10 minutes, so we are adjourned. Thank you. We got quite a bit covered.
Appreciate. Yeah, we covered the list. I appreciate it.